Hello all, welcome to Narayana IAS Academy. This is Sureka Bhaskar presenting to you the Daily News Analysis. So for today's discussion, we've picked up a number of articles from The Hindu and the Indian Express which are both important and relevant for the UPSC CSE examination. Now let us have a look at the topics one by one. The first article for the day has been picked up from page number 9 of the Indian Express. The path runs through fields. So in this particular article, we'll be discussing about the development of India's agriculture since independence in comparison with that of China, and also the article suggests reforms in order to achieve the food security as well as sustainable development. The second article has been picked up from page number 11 of the Indian Express, Lateral Entry into Bureaucracy. So this particular topic actually discusses about the lateral entry recruitment into the Indian bureaucracy, the process of lateral entry, its rationale, as well as the criticism it actually faces due to the lack of reservation for the SC, ST as well as the OBC candidates. The third article has been picked up from page number 1 of The Hindu, CAA not to take away anyone's citizenship but to grant it, says Amit Shah. So in this particular article, we'll be discussing about the various provisions as well as the highlights of the Citizenship Amendment Act of 2019. Moving forward, the fourth article has been picked up from page number 12 of The Hindu, FSSAI begins project on microplastic contamination. So as the title suggests, in this article, we'll be discussing about the FSSAI, that is the Food Safety and Standards Authority of India, having launched a new project in order to address the microplastic contamination, especially with respect to that of food. So in this particular context for the examination, we'll be discussing about the concept of microplastics and its associated impact on the food. The last article for the day has been picked up from page number 10 of The Hindu. Army fields tactical assault canine ZAC at the bilateral exercise in Sri Lanka. So in this particular article, we'll be discussing about the bilateral exercise between India and Sri Lanka, that is Mitra Shakti. And towards the end of the session, we'll be solving few prelims as well as the mains practice questions. And now let us get into the discussion. The first article that we'll be discussing about today is The Path Runs Through the Field. So this particular article discusses about the advancements and developments of India's agriculture since independence, and over the years, what have been or what are the lessons that India must actually learn from that of the Chinese economy with respect to agriculture, trade, etc. And also it suggests certain reforms that India actually has to inculcate in order to achieve food security as well as sustainable development. Okay. So moving forward, in this particular article, we'll be discussing about India's agriculture as well as this particular concept of food security. And this particular topic can be mapped to GS paper 3 of the mains examination, specifically under agriculture, food security, economic growth and development. Now moving forward, as agriculture is a very important topic, there has been a previous year question asked in the mains examination in the year 2017 on the various types of revolution that actually took place in agriculture after independence in India, and how have these revolutions helped in the poverty alleviation as well as food security in India. So as such, agriculture, any kind of schemes associated with that policy as well as framework becomes very important for both your prelims as well as the mains examination. Now moving forward, it is important for us to understand what this particular article is discussing about. Okay, so the article examines India's agriculture development since independence, comparing it with that of China and suggesting certain reforms that India actually has to undertake or inculcate in its policies in order to achieve food security as well as sustainable growth. Now it is important for us to actually look at India's agriculture progress since independence. Okay. So, India actually transitioned or transcended from a nation which was facing famines and droughts, etc., to a food secure country. That is because of, or we need to, be grateful to the Green Revolution that actually took place in the late 1960s. And if you see, at the time of independence, over 75% of the population actually lived in extreme poverty, with food security being a very, it was a huge or a significant challenge, you can say. And if you see, there was actually a Bengal famine in the year 1943. This actually highlighted the dire plight or the dire state of food security, with an estimated 1.5 to around 3 million people perishing due to starvation. After which there was Green Revolution, which was actually set forth in 1960s, that introduced the high yielding variety seeds, the chemical fertilizers, the pesticides and improved irrigation. This actually led to significant increase in agriculture productivity. And if you see, from 2004 to 2005 to 2023-24, in this period of time, India's agriculture GDP grew at an average annual rate of around 3.6%, ensuring the nation's food security. Now moving forward, India is now a net exporter of agriculture products, with exports averaging to around 51 billion annually over the last 3 years. But if you see, despite this progress, challenges such as nutritional security and sustainable growth actually remain. Now it is important for us to understand what are the challenges facing Indian agriculture. First is enough of focus is actually not given to pulse production. Okay, so there are actually policy paralysis, there is deficit in the funding that is given. Instead, it is focused on water intensive cultivation like rice, etc. So pulses production and self-sufficiency is one of the first challenges. So India aims for self-sufficiency in pulses, but current policies such as inadequate incentives for the pulses cultivation and excessive focus on the water-intensive crops like the rice may lead to increased imports by 2030 of the pulses, with demand expected to reach around 40 million tons. The next one is water and fertilizer use. So here, as we actually see that incentives are actually inclined towards water incentive crops or intensive crops like rice, here they actually receive more subsidies, leading to environmental strain as well as underutilization of crops like pulses. Next, there is actually severe nutritional security. Whereas, despite food security, if you see, 35% of the children under 5 are actually stunted. And this scenario indicates a need for focus on nutrition rather than just the quantity of the food that you actually provide. And also, this particular concept of diversification of crop rather than commercialization of crop actually has to be focused. That is, crop diversification towards nutrient-rich crops is essential for addressing malnutrition. And also, there is a challenge of market access as well as income support, where India's agricultural policies have historically taxed farmers a lot through restrictive trade as well as marketing regulations. And although input subsidies such as those for fertilizers and power, all these things are actually provided, they often do not translate, this necessarily, just giving subsidies not necessarily means that it has actually increased or doubled the farmer's income over the years. So, market access as well as income support is also a challenge that Indian agriculture actually faces. Now moving forward, what are all the lessons that India actually has to take away or learn from that of China? So, China's agricultural reforms actually took place in the year 1978, which is very important, and this actually includes dismantling the commune system. Okay, so here it is important to understand what is a commune system, where the agriculture and the other resources were collectively actually, owned or managed by a particular community. So, there was dismantling of the commune system after the agricultural reforms in China came in place in 1978. And also, there was liberalizing crop prices. This actually led to a significant increase to the rural incomes. Here, the commune system, as I told you, was a collective farming and the administrative system in China, where the agricultural and other resources were collectively owned and managed by the communities, and this often led to centralized control as well as production quotas. So between, if you see, 1978 and 1984, rural incomes in China actually grew by more than 14% annually, which is actually huge, and this actually had driven the demand for goods produced by town and village enterprises. This is the TVEs. Now, in today's scenario, if you see, China's agriculture output is almost double that of India despite having less land under cultivation. Very, very important. And China also provides supports to its farmers through the income support on a per acre basis and the market price support higher than the OECD countries. This is also very, very important. Next one is China's one-child policy. Okay, from 1981 to 2016, this actually contributed to faster per capita income growth. Although we actually know this is actually very, very difficult to implement in a huge diverse country like India. However, investing in girl education is very, very important and remains critical for India. Now, what are the reforms, that is actually suggested in order to achieve food security as well as sustainable growth? Is that first, you need to invest in agriculture research and development, where you need to focus on R&D to develop climate resilient crops, improve the irrigation and adopt precision farming technologies, without much use of water, etc. And also, enhanced R&D is critical for adapting to changing environmental conditions and also sustaining the productivity. Next one you need to expand the irrigation infrastructure, where you need to promote efficient water management technology and practices like, the drip irrigation and the sprinkler irrigation, and also expand the irrigation coverage to rain-fed areas in order to stabilize the crop yields and also reduce the dependence on the erratic monsoons that is of late taking place due to the climate change. Next one, opening up land lease markets, where we need to consider opening land lease markets to allow extended lease periods, providing security for the farmers to invest in sustainable practices. Also, consolidating the fragmented land holdings, very, very important. Through leasing can increase the farming efficiency and productivity. Next one, we need to build value chains for the perishables, okay, where a robust development of value chains for perishable products like fruits, vegetables, etc. should be there, following successful model, that is the Amul model in the dairy sector. And also, we need to try reducing the post-harvest losses and ensure fair prices for the farmers by building value chains for fruits, vegetables, as well as other perishables. Next one, there has to be effective policy coordination between the center and the state. Okay, so effective implementation of the agriculture reforms requires very close coordination between the center and the state, and also there has to be tailored interventions as per the requirements of the particular state rather than a standardized formula, because one size actually does not fit all. So this actually ensures farmers have access to necessary resources as well as support. So overall, what is the way forward, or what India actually has to do, depending on the lessons that it actually learned from that of China, is India has of course made significant strides in agriculture since independence, but we know that challenges are actually prevailing in achieving food security as well as sustainable growth. So by taking away all learning from China's experience and implementing bold reforms, India can ensure a prosperous agriculture sector, where this can be achieved only through investing in R&D, expanding the irrigation, opening up the land lease markets as we discussed, and also building up value chains for the perishables. And these are all critical steps towards achieving Viksit Bharat by 2047 for India. The next article that we'll be discussing today will be lateral entry into bureaucracy. So in this particular article, we'll be looking into what are the provisions and what are the justifications by the center or the Department of Personnel and Training to recruit lateral entry candidates into the Indian bureaucracy. And also we'll be discussing about what are the criticisms with respect to the lack of reservation for the SC, ST as well as the OBC candidates. Okay, so in this particular article, we'll be discussing about the All India services and also the concept of lateral entry into bureaucracy and the relevant provisions, and also reservation in public employment. And this particular topic can be mapped to Mains GS Paper 2 under role of civil services in a democracy as well as government policies and interventions. Okay. Now moving forward, there has been a previous year question asked in the mains examination in the year 2014 about the cadre-based civil services organization been the cause of slow in India and critically examined. So as such, civil services as well as all India services and their role in the democracy is very, very important, specifically for your mains examination. Now moving forward, let us understand what this particular article is discussing about. Okay, so the Union Public Service Commission, that is the UPSC, has recently issued an advertisement seeking applications for talented and motivated Indian nationals for the lateral recruitment to the Indian civil services to the posts of Joint Secretary, Director and Deputy Secretary in 24 ministries of the Union government. Moving forward, let us actually have an insight on how many vacancies have actually been posted. So, a total of around 45 positions have been advertised, with eligibility extended to the individuals who actually possess the necessary qualifications and experience from the state governments or the governments of the union territories, the PSUs, that is the public sector undertakings, the statutory organizations, and it can also be research institutions, institutes, universities as well as the private sector. And also it specifies, that is the advertisement or the notification actually specifies that all the positions are suitable for the candidates belonging to the category of persons with benchmark disability also. Now moving forward, it is important for us to understand what is the lateral entry into bureaucracy and what does it mean, what are the related provisions and the relevant or the associated criticism that this actually faces. So, in 2017, Niti Aayog, which is actually the think tank, through its 3-year action agenda, along with the sectoral group of secretaries, that is the SGOS, on governance, they actually submitted a report that recommended the inclusion of professionals at the middle and the senior management levels within the central government. And these lateral entrants would join the Central Secretariat, which had previously been staffed exclusively by career bureaucrats exclusively from the All India Services and Central Civil Services itself. And also they would be offered contracts for a period of 3 years, which is very, very important. And there is also a possibility of extending the term to a maximum of 5 years. Now moving forward, if you actually see this particular timeline which is in this image, so in 2017 what is happening is both the Niti Aayog as well as a group of secretaries recommended the lateral induction of personnel at senior level in Government of India. And this goes on in 2018 where 6,077 applications were received for 10 posts of joint secretaries under the lateral entry scheme. And in 2019, 9 joint secretaries were actually selected and 8 had actually joined. And this goes on to 2021 where 31 candidates including 3 secretaries were selected out of the 2031 applicants. And of late in 2022, of the selected candidates, 30, that is 3 joint secretaries, 18 directors and 9 deputy secretaries joined in 21 ministries and 1 actually had dropped out. So this was the chronology of what had actually happened with respect to that of the lateral entry into the Indian bureaucracy. Now moving on, let us actually understand what are the positions that are actually open for the lateral entry. So following the recommendation that was actually given by Niti Aayog as well as a group of secretaries in 2017, the first vacancies for the lateral entrants were actually advertised in 2018, initially limited to positions of joint secretary level and subsequently positions at the ranks of director as well as the deputy secretary were also opened. If you see, a joint secretary appointed by the Appointments Committee of the Cabinet, that is the ACC, holds the 3rd highest rank in a department following the secretary and the additional secretary. So basically it will be the secretary, then it will be the additional secretary and then comes the joint secretary. And this role serves as the administrative head of the department or the wing. Next one, if you see the directors, they are ranked 1 level below the joint secretaries, that is following this will be the directors, and the deputy secretaries are 1 rank below the directors. So here you have the deputy secretaries, although in most ministries they carry out similar responsibilities. And also if you see, while the directors and the deputy secretaries are regarded as a middle level officials within a department, the joint secretary level is typically where all the decision making actually begins in a particular department or wing. Next, if you see, now we've understood what is this concept of lateral entry and why was the notification made, how it was actually made, and what were the vacancies or the posts for which the vacancies were issued. Now understanding is what was the union government's logic behind introducing lateral entries. Okay, so lateral recruitment according to the union government is intended to achieve 2 key goals. One is to bring in fresh talent and the next one is to increase the availability of manpower. And also the concept behind this is to leverage individuals' domain expertise and specialized knowledge regardless of whether they are the career bureaucrats. Okay, so irrespective of whether they have been a bureaucrat since the inception of their career, it is important to give them the opportunity based on the expertise. Next, in line with this particular approach, officials from various central civil services have been given opportunities to serve in the central secretariat over the past decades, even though it has traditionally been dominated by the IAS officers, that is the Indian Administrative Service officers. Now, if you look at this particular image, you will actually know that there have been a lot of vacancies, okay, as of 2020 for the posts of these higher level officers. For example, you can see 116, okay, and then 102 in Bihar, and in Maharashtra there were actually 100 posts vacant as of January by key cadres and overall India. Then if you see Uttar Pradesh 97 as well as 1000 overall India, if you see it was around 1500. Okay, so this is actually huge. So in order to fill these vacancies, the government actually had given out the lateral entry option. And if you see IAS officers working in India in the past 5 years from 2016, how it actually goes on till 2020, it is actually 5205. So because of this particular concept of lateral entry was introduced. Now moving forward, let us actually see how many people have been appointed via lateral recruitment so far. So the first round of lateral recruitment actually started in 2018. This saw around 6,000 applications for this JS, that is Joint Secretary level roles, resulting in 9 appointments across different ministries, which we actually saw in that particular image itself. Further, the rounds were held in 2021 and also in 2023, and as of August 2024, 63 lateral appointments have been made in the past 5 years, with 57 officers currently serving the various ministries as well as departments. These are all very static points and is not that important, but we are just discussing just for the clarity and better understanding of whether it has actually been implemented and how far it has actually been progressing in India. Now moving forward, let us see what is the criticism that this lateral entry recruitment is actually facing. It faces criticism of, not having the reservation or quotas for the scheduled caste, the scheduled tribe as well as the OBC candidates. Now moving forward, why are there no quotas in lateral recruitment? Okay, so what is the justification that the union government or DOPT is actually coming forward is quotas are not applied in lateral recruitment because these appointments are treated like the deputations or short-term contracts, okay, for a period of 3 years or maximum. It has a possibility of being extended to 5 years. So here reservation policies are not mandatory. Also, it focuses on hiring individuals with specialized skill and expertise, often requiring flexibility and speed. And over here, if we actually start applying the standard reservation policies, it's going to take, it's really going to be a Herculean task, okay? And although there are no mandatory quotas, eligible SC, ST as well as the OBC candidates are still encouraged to be considered for these particular roles. Now, how have lateral entries been kept out of the ambit of reservation? Here, it is kept out of the ambit of reservation on the way the recruitment process is actually structured, okay? That is number one, it is based on this particular principle of single post vacancies. So, in lateral recruitment, each vacancy is actually treated as a separate individual post rather than a part of the collective group of vacancies. So there is something called as a 13-point roster, okay, system where the reservation policies do not apply to single post cadres, meaning that if there is only one position to be filled, it is not subject to any kind of reservation. For example, now UPSC has actually come out with vacancies of 45 openings, okay. So according to the traditional or the conventional reservation system, we can actually say 6 vacancies can be reserved for the SC candidate, 3 of them can be given to the ST candidate and 12 for the OBC candidates and 4 for the EWS, that is the economically weaker section category. However, these vacancies have been advertised separately for each department. So, all of them don't come under a group of vacancies and they are effectively single post vacancies, and hence the government says that this actually bypasses the policy of reservation. The next article that we'll be discussing about is Citizenship Amendment Act, not to take away anyone's citizenship but to grant it, says Amit Shah. So here we'll be discussing about the various provisions that are actually related to the CAA, that is Citizenship Amendment Act of 2019, and also we'll be discussing about this particular NRC, that is the National Registry for Citizens, okay. So this particular topic can actually be mapped to the prelims as well as the mains examination under GS paper 2, that is the Indian Constitution, historical underpinnings, the evolution, features, amendments, significant provisions as well as the basic structure. Now moving forward, there has been a previous year question which has been asked in the 2021 prelims examination with respect to that of citizenship in India. Okay, so any kind of these particular concepts and the relevant constitutional provisions to it is actually very, very important for the prelim, and the debates revolving it are very, very important for your mains examination. Now moving forward, let us understand what this particular article is discussing about. So, the Union Home Minister, Mr. Amit Shah, had handed over citizenship certificates to around 188 Hindu refugees in Gujarat under the Citizenship Amendment Act, and he had also stated that the law has no provision to take away anyone's citizenship, but in other words, it is actually there to provide citizenship to the people. Moving on, let us understand what is this particular CAA or the Citizenship Amendment Act, okay. So, the CAA of 2019 is a highly debated law in India, and this actually amends the Citizenship Act of 1955 in order to offer faster route to Indian citizenship for the persecuted religious minorities. Very, very important. Persecuted religious minorities from our neighbors, that is the Afghanistan, Bangladesh as well as Pakistan, who had actually faced these persecution and entered India before 31st of December 2014. Here you need to know Nepal, Bhutan, etc. are actually not included. Okay. So the CAA specifically targets the Hindus, the Sikhs, the Buddhists, the Jains, the Parsis and the Christians, reducing their residency requirement for the citizenship from 12 years to 6 years. That is earlier in order to, get, that is, for example, if you are a religiously persecuted minority from any of these countries like Afghanistan, Bangladesh and Pakistan, in order to attain Indian citizenship, you need to actually prove your residence in India for about or a period of 12 years. But now that has actually been reduced to 6 years. That is what it says. Now moving forward, what are the exceptions of the CAA? First one is the tribal areas. The CAA does not apply to certain tribal areas. Which are the tribal areas? The Assam, then Meghalaya, Mizoram and Tripura, and these are all part of the 6th schedule of the Indian Constitution. And this particular schedule is designed to protect the rights and the autonomy of the tribal communities. And the next one, it also does not apply to the inner line permit areas. That the Act also exempts the regions covered under the inner line permit. What is the inner line permit? This actually restricts the non-residents to obtain special permission to enter and to reside in these particular areas. And these areas include Arunachal Pradesh, Mizoram, Nagaland as well as Manipur. Very, very important. Now, what are the concerns and the criticisms that are actually revolving around this CAA? First one, issues in the northeast. Okay, so the CAA is actually seen to be contrary to that of the Assam Accord of 1985. So what do you mean by this Assam Accord? This was to identify and to deport the illegal immigrants regardless of their religion and the influx, because Assam was actually characterized by the influx of many of the immigrants, okay, particularly from Bangladesh, and that actually significantly altered the demographic balance in Assam, and that is why this Assam Accord had come up in 1985 and leading to fears about the cultural identity as well as the economic strain, okay. So now the CAA, which actually grants quicker citizenship to the persecuted minorities, actually raises a question, and it happens to be contradictory to this Assam Accord. The next one is the dimension of constitutionality. Here, critics argue that CAA violates Article 14 of the Indian Constitution, which actually guarantees right to equality before the law to all the individuals. Therefore, they claim the law, it actually discriminates based on religion and undermines the secular fabric of the country. Next one, they say that it is exclusionary in nature. That is, the act is criticized for not including the persecuted groups like the atheists. It does not include the Jews and the Muslims, and for excluding other neighboring countries like Nepal, Bhutan as well as Myanmar. Okay, because we saw Bangladesh, Afghanistan and Pakistan only, and also we saw the religiously persecuted minorities, and there were actually no atheist Jews as well as Muslims who were included. Next one is the possibility of igniting the federal tensions. That is, some critics as well as some states, particularly that of Kerala, have actually refused to implement the CAA, creating a conflict between the state as well as the central government. Now it is important for us to understand what is this NRC. This is nothing but the National Register of Citizens. Okay, so this is a registry intended to identify all the legal citizens of India, and it was initially implemented in Assam in order to detect who were the illegal immigrants there. As well as critics are now concerned that when combined with the CAA, the NRC would result in the exclusion of Muslims, as they might not meet the necessary criteria for citizenship. So for all the criticisms, what does the government actually has to say, or what is the stand of the government? The government actually defends this entire CIA by stating that it is a humanitarian measure which is aimed at granting citizenship to the persecuted religious minorities, and also it actually gives us a reason of why it hasn't included Muslims, because it argues that Muslims in Afghanistan, Pakistan and Bangladesh do not face religious persecution, as these are Muslim majority countries. And also the government has rightly pointed out that historical precedents where India has provided refuge to the minorities, such as during the partition of India in 1947 as well as the Bangladesh Liberation War in 1971. So to conclude, we need to say that the CAA remains a contentious issue. On one side, with the supporters viewing it as a necessary step to protect the persecuted minorities, while on the other side, you have the critics that argue it undermines the secular as well as the inclusive principles which is actually enshrined in the Constitution of India. The next article that we'll be discussing about is FSSAI, that is the Food Safety and the Standards Authority of India, had actually begun or launched a project on microplastic contamination, that is in order to address the microplastic contamination on food. So in this particular article, we'll be discussing about what is this particular organization of FSSAI, as well as the newly released or the launched project, as well as the concept of micro as well as the nanoplastics. And this particular topic can be mapped to the prelims as well as the mains examination under GS paper 3, nanotechnology, pollution and degradation, as well as environment and ecology. Now moving forward, there has been a previous year question asked in the year 2018 with respect to that of FSSAI. So this particular article becomes very important for both your prelims as well as the mains examination. And now let us understand what this particular article is discussing about. Okay, so the Food Safety and Standards Authority of India has initiated a project to assess the microplastic contamination in the food products, and the main aim of this particular launch is to develop and validate the analytical methods in order to detect the micro as well as nanoplastics in various food products in India. Moving forward, let us understand more on what this project is all about. So the project will focus on creating standard protocols for analyzing the quantity of micro as well as the nanoplastics in the food, how much of contamination is there, and this will actually include conducting both intra as well as inter-laboratory comparisons in order to ensure the accuracy and the reliability of the detection methods. And also, this particular project will actually aim to generate critical data on the prevalence and the exposure levels of microplastics among the Indian consumers. Now moving forward, it is important for us to understand what are microplastics as well as nanoplastics. Okay, so microplastics and nanoplastics are small plastic particles that have actually become a significant environmental and health concern due to their widespread presence in the environment, including in food as well as water. Okay, so when consumed or when the consumers are actually exposed to it, it can be very fatal. So microplastics, if you see the characteristic feature, they are typically defined as plastic particles which are less than 5 millimeters in diameter, and they are pervasive in the oceans, rivers and also in the soils, and they can be ingested, taken up by the marine life, that eventually leads to potential harm which may extend up to the food chain and the food web to the humans. Okay. Next one, what are nanoplastics? These are even smaller than microplastics, usually less than 1 micron, that is 1000 nanometers in size, and often invisible to the naked eye. And because of their small size, nanoplastics can potentially cross the biological barriers also, such as the cell membranes, etc., and they can actually start getting accumulated in the organs as well as the tissues of the human body. Now moving forward, if you see this particular image, it actually shows the presence of microplastics and nanoplastics. Now let us quickly run through one of the most important facts for the prelims examination, that is about this particular Food Safety and Standard Authority of India. It is the premier regulatory body in India which is responsible for, in the name itself you know that it is responsible to ensure food safety as well as public health. This was actually established under the Food Safety and Standards Act of 2006 and operates under the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, Government of India. And there are major initiatives. First one is the Eat Right India movement, which is actually a nationwide campaign that actually promotes safety, healthy as well as sustainable eating habits among the consumers. Next one is food fortification, where FSSAI actually promotes the fortification of staple food like salt, oil, milk and rice with essential nutrients in order to combat this particular malnutrition, stunting, etc., specifically among children. And also the food safety on the wheels. This is nothing but these are mobile units, okay, which are designed to reach the remote areas in order to test the food, train and to, create awareness among the public. The next article that we'll be discussing about is Army Fields Tactical Assault Canine. This is also called as K9 in military parlance, which is nothing but an army dog. Okay, so his name is actually Zach at the bilateral exercise in Sri Lanka. But the carry away for us for the prelims examination is to understand what is this bilateral exercise between India and Sri Lanka, that is Mitra Shakti. Okay. So moving forward, here we'll be discussing about exercise Mitra Shakti and how is it significant for India's, strategic security. Next, this particular topic can actually be mapped to both the prelims and the mains examination under GS Paper 3 Security as well as GS Paper 2 India and its neighborhood relations. Now moving forward, in 2020, there was a PYQ, with respect to that of how India actually has its relationship or has been maintaining its relationship with that of Sri Lanka, okay, as well as various dimensions of what is the exports, the imports, the trade and the security dimensions have been asked in the examination. So, this particular topic becomes very, very important for both your prelims as well as the mains examination. Now, let us actually understand what this particular article is discussing about. So, exercise Mitra Shakti, which is a bilateral military exercise between India and Sri Lanka, is actually designed in order to strengthen the military cooperation and enhance the interoperability between the armed forces. This, that is the 10th edition, is actually held from 12th to 25th August of 2024. And this focuses on the counter-insurgency operations, that is this particular edition. Also operations in semi-urban environments, reflecting the two nations' commitment to regional security as well as preparedness. Now moving forward, let us actually understand when did this particular bilateral exercise between both the sides had actually started. So it was launched in the year 2013. Exercise Mitra Shakti is an annual joint military exercise between India and Sri Lanka, and the purpose is to improve combat readiness as well as enhance the operational coordination between the two nations' armies. And also, if you particularly see the significance of the highlights of the 2024 editions, there has been the canine deployment, okay. That is, I told you about this military dog, a highly trained Indian Army assault canine skilled in advanced tactical operations. The second one is the technological integration has been there in the 2024 edition, as well as interoperability between both the sides. And also, there is this component of comprehensive training, which actually covers modern warfare tactics, including house interventions, jungle searches, as well as laser-guided assaults. Now moving forward, it is important for us to understand what is the significance of such military exercises, okay. First one, it actually has the strategic significance because it strengthens the military ties between India and Sri Lanka, which is key for maintaining regional security in the Indian Ocean region as well as to counter the security threats of China. Next one, enhancement of capabilities, that it actually boosts the Sri Lanka's military capabilities by leveraging the Indian Army's expertise in the counter-insurgency operations. Next is, it is actually very relevant to the modern threats, that is, it focuses on the sub-conventional warfare and addresses the current global security challenges like asymmetric warfare as well as insurgency. Next one, it actually fosters the cooperation, that is, it promotes understanding and the better coordination between the two militaries, contributing to regional peace as well as stability. So finally, to sum it all, the future iterations of this particular exercise Mitra Shakti should integrate the emerging technologies, expand and address the cyber warfare in order to adapt to evolving security challenges. And also, strengthening this partnership is vital for enhancing the military capability and ensuring the regional stability, thereby solidifying India's defense strategy in South Asia. Now let us solve few prelims as well as the mains practice question. The first question reads, exercise Mitra Shakti is a bilateral military exercise between India and which one of the following country? India, Nepal, no, this is actually wrong. India, Bangladesh is also wrong. India, UAE is also wrong. So India and Sri Lanka actually happens to be the right option. So the answer is option B. Now moving on, the second question reads, the Citizenship Amendment Act, that is the CAA of 2019 in India, is intended to A. Amend the Citizenship Act of 1955 to grant citizenship to all the illegal immigrants in India regardless of religion or nationality. This is actually wrong. Offer a faster route to Indian citizenship for the persecuted religious minorities from Afghanistan, Bangladesh and Pakistan who entered India before December 31, 2014. Yes, this is actually right. Let's see the other two options as well. Grant Indian citizenship only to Muslims who have faced persecution in neighboring countries. No, this is also wrong. And the next one is reduce the residency requirement for all the foreigners seeking Indian citizenship from 12 to 6 years. This is also wrong since B is actually the correct option. The answer is option B. Now moving forward, the third question reads, consider the following statements regarding the microplastics and the recent initiative by FSSAI. Microplastics are plastic particles less than 5 millimeters in diameter, while nanoparticles or nanoplastics are smaller than 1 micron. This is actually correct. And FSSAI has launched a project in order to assess microplastic contamination in food products in India with the aim of developing and validating analytical methods for detecting micro and nanoplastics. This is also correct. The next one is the Eat Right movement, an initiative by FSSAI focuses specifically on reducing plastic usage in food packaging. No, this is actually wrong. Since statements 1 and 2 are correct, the correct option will be, or the correct answer will be option A. Moving on, the fourth question reads, consider the following statements with reference to that of Appointments Committee of the Cabinet. Number 1, it primarily deals with the appointing officers of the level of the Joint Secretary and above the Central Secretariat. This is actually correct. And the chairman of UPSC acts as the ex officio chairperson of the ACC. This is actually wrong. So, which of the statements given is or are correct? Since only statement 1 is correct, the correct answer will be option A. Now, moving forward, the fifth question, the National Register of Citizens, that is NRC, is primarily associated with A registry for all legal citizens in India that was first implemented nationwide in order to identify illegal immigrants. This is actually wrong. It is a registry aimed at documenting all the legal citizens of India first implemented in Assam to identify illegal immigrants. Yes, this is correct. So, ultimately, the next two will actually be wrong. However, we'll read it. C is a nationwide initiative to provide citizenship to all the residents in India regardless of their legal status. Wrong. The next one is a government initiative exclusively for identifying illegal immigrants from Pakistan as well as Bangladesh. This is also wrong. Since option B is actually correct, the answer will be option B. Now moving on, the mains practice question reads, evaluate the transformation of India's agriculture sector from independence to the present and identify the persistent challenges facing India's agriculture. Also suggest the strategic reforms in order to achieve sustainable growth and nutritional security. So, the approach to this particular question is actually divided or broken down into 3 parts, that is the introduction, the body and the conclusion. In the introduction, we will briefly describe the evolution of India's agriculture sector since independence, highlighting the milestones like the Green Revolution that provided fertilizers, pesticides, high yield variety of seeds, then irrigation, etc. And in the body, we'll be discussing about the historical progress or the transition that India has actually made by increase in the agriculture productivity and India's emergence of, as a food surplus nation. And also what are the current challenges India actually faces, such as water usage or, the lack of crop diversification and nutritional security, because enough of incentives are not given for, the pulse production, market access, etc. Next, we need to talk about the proposed reforms like, investing in the R&D, expanding the irrigation infrastructure, developing the value chains, as well as improving the policy coordination between the center as well as the state governments. And towards the conclusion, we need to conclude by emphasizing the need for innovative and sustainable practices in order to secure the agriculture future and nutritional security aligned with the logo or the motto of Vikshit Bharat by 2047. So with this, we've actually come to the end of our daily news analysis discussion. For more updates as well as live sessions, please do like, share and subscribe to Narayana IAS Academy YouTube channel. Thank you.